ye changi kopan yutu shu. The full limitless contemplation. Oh, Gail, I'll have to look at your thing later. I didn't have time to do that. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering, attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Dungal tang, dungal chichu tang tra waju chik, dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindra waju chik, nearing chak tang ni tang drawe, tang num chimpo la ne pa juche. So good morning to everybody. Just get my file. So we are continuing with our beautiful, beautiful talk of the slow boat or the fast train, uniting the path or goal of enlightenment. And then we'll leave all of this next time. And you'll have Nicola next time. And maybe you two can do the evening group, Ron and Sharon. Think about that, will you? Perhaps you could do that and Nicola could do the morning group. Anyway, the slow boat or the fast train and uniting that goal is something we all have to look at, because some of you definitely like the slow train. A lot of you like the slow train, and that is perfectly okay. Be it not for me ever to say that it isn't okay, because it's fine. You can go step by step over many, many lifetimes. I'm just too tired to do it that way. So I want a little bit of a leap. So I'm going to start with one quote and a story. The story is, Mullah Nasruddin decided to start a flower garden. He prepared the soil and planted the seeds of many beautiful flowers. But when they came up, his garden was filled not only with his chosen flowers, but also overrun by dandelions. He sought out advice from gardeners all over and tried every method known to get rid of them, but to no avail. Finally, he walked all the way to the capital to speak to the royal garden at the sheik's palace. The wise old man had counseled many gardeners before and suggested a variety of remedies to expel the dandelion. But Mullah had tried them all. You know, he's quite a character, this Mullah. They sat together in silence for some time, and finally the garden looked at Nasruddin and said, well then, I suggest you learn to love them. Now, I use that story because it's a very, very important story of all the things we're trying to get rid of. And certainly on the slow boat, you have to get rid of things. You have to renunciate. You have to make yourself really very spiritual and all of that and get it right. But on the higher paths, it's much more important to learn to love and accept everything that is in your life and learn how to deal with it. Learn to love it, not to love it because it's something you don't like, but to love that it's there to give you that opportunity to really, really, really change yourself, change everything in your life. It's such an amazing opportunity. Somebody wrote me a text and said, Melanie, I can't stand my father anymore. He's driven me mad. He's never given me understanding. My mother died. He's not been able to. And I said, get a life. Really realize that your father's in your life, okay? And learn to view him differently. Because yes, he can't give you all that nurturing, but maybe he's teaching you something else. Learn to love what you have. Learn to appreciate what you have, not to look at all the things you want to get rid of and how it is. And that's why I took that story. And then the other one is of Zen wisdom. And I love the story, and you can think about it on your own. Before a person studies Zen, mountains are mountains and waters are waters. After a first insight into the truth of the Zen Buddhism, mountains are no longer mountains and waters are not waters. But after enlightenment, mountains are once again mountains and waters are waters. I want you to contemplate that. It's one of those koans, that you get. How did they, before we saw them in our physical capacity, then we see them after the physical capacity, we can't see them anymore. We're looking in at the emptiness. And then finally, we can look at them in a completely different way. So again, they are mountains, but they don't have anything over you. They don't hook you in any way. That's what happens when you enlighten. When you get to there, it's very important. So with this sharp VAJRA of awareness tantra that was written, which I've given you 3 sessions, so you can go back and look at some of them again, Jigme Lingpa, who gives us this, what's his aim? The whole tantra is to wake us up. And when we keep reading it, we realize that Jigme Lingpa was trying to reveal to us who we really are. The only thing truly worth understanding in our whole lives, who we really are. But while he's doing that, trying to make our focus away from the ongoing problems of our day-to-day lives, he's also given great compassion and attention to the way we live. That's why he shows us the way the Dharma is taught, so that each and every person can find access to it at their own level of consciousness. But while he's giving it at each of their own levels of consciousness, at the same time, he's daring us to leap right over all of this. And if we are able to, and when we do, we get to our own completion, our own perfection. And suddenly, that's why I gave the example of the mountains are mountains. What we used to see as all the pain and suffering, difficulties and evil, the impure vision of our ordinary consciousness, of seeing duality through the physical senses, is transformed, which it tells us in this verse 4, into the 3 gates of liberation. And what are the 3 gates? Emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. It means empty of a separate existence, but it means emptiness means there's no permanence, there's no solidity, and we shouldn't grasp. It's full of possibility. Emptiness. And the second gate of liberation is signlessness. That means when we stop conceptualizing about everything, when we stop putting concepts and labels onto everything, it's called signlessness. Doesn't mean I don't say to you, this is a bottle of water. If I say to you, bring me my bottle of water, if I go, bring me no thingness, you won't know what I want. I've got to say, bring me my bottle of water. Okay, there is a reason for the name, but I'm not attached to it. I'm not attached to the bottle of water. I know that when this bottle either gets dirty or cracks, it will be no more. So I can enjoy it and drink water out of it, but soon it may not be in existence. So I don't have to attach to the labels. Now, especially with human beings, when we label people. This is not a nice person. This is a nice person. This is what I think about this person. Signlessness means you're not judging anymore. And the last one is desirelessness. What does desirelessness mean? When you go to a Buddhist center where there are lots of, say, monks and nuns who are really heavy practitioners and everything, they don't have the same desires that we have to look nice, to do your hair, to do everything that you do, okay? But we can have desires, but desirelessness means it's not attached to what we want. And if this doesn't work out, we can have this. Desirelessness, the sameness, is full of possibility. So If I really want something and I'm enjoying it, that's fine. But in the back of my mind, I always know it's not going to be there for long. It's not going to be everything. When my shrine room disappeared out of my horizons, and I made this one little section, okay, of a shrine room compared to all my glass. But now I realize, like when I'm sitting on this side, I can see all the trees of Melrose, even though there's a house over there. And somebody told me, I'll show you. I mean, their houses and things. Can you see on the other side how their houses and things? Okay. But I suddenly decided, I'm not drawing the net curtains. No ways. If they see me, they see me. Maybe they'll learn something from me across the way. You know? I'm leaving it open. Too bad if they do. It's fine. But desirelessness means it's not. Sometimes when I came to Sammy Ling, and I was the very first time, and I came right at the beginning of my Buddhism, and I was so lost. I didn't know where to get food. I didn't know where to go. I was put up in the Pure Lands. I didn't understand anything. And when I walked into the dining room, everybody was so without desire. They didn't even realize I was lost. Okay. So nobody helped me. I had to go and say, where'd you get the plates? Where'd you get in there? Kind of point, they complete. Desireless is different to desirelessness, because desireless, deadpan. Okay, I don't desire anything. I've renunciated everything. Quite frankly, you are a total bore. And quite frankly, if you can't see that I'm a little lost girl, then I don't know what your Buddhism is about. You know, do you understand what I'm saying? Desirelessness means you still enjoy things, you're still full of fun, you still have feelings, you still have everything, but you don't desire them to be exactly as you think they should be to make you safe. So those three gates of liberation, we could have a whole session on, which we're not. I'm just running through. I shouldn't have gone into so much details, but it says the physical senses are transformed into the three gates of liberation, into the five kayas, the five families, the five wisdoms. We could just read the beginning of the text. And what is the meaning of this? Let's just go to 4, Bern, and just read the beginning of level 4 of in the text, so we can all just read it, because then I want to just say what it is. If you can. If it takes long, I'm just going to go on, that's fine. So there is level 4 there. Let's just read the beginning together. The nature of all apparent existence is emptiness. The great emptiness is naturally complete within the nature of the path. The essence, Dharmakaya Buddha nature, is beyond being altered or contrived by either samsara or nirvana. Free from all conceptual extremes, endowed with the three gates of liberation, the five kayas, the five families, the five wisdoms, the five Buddha fields, the five fathers, the five mothers, the three jewels, the three roots, enlightened families, mandala, empowerment. No, that wasn't perpetuation. That was supposed to be empowerment. Let me just tell you now what that word was supposed to be. Where am I now? Three jewels. Oh, it is perpetuation. I don't know what that is actually. Anyway, perpetuate, I suppose. Okay. They are naturally complete within the nature of Mahayoga. That's fine, Bern. That's all I wanted to see. So what's the meaning of that? What are we learning from this Tantra? When you open the eye of wisdom, everything, absolutely everything, is transformed into pure vision, okay? I wanted to say to Edith, who's unfortunately not here, Bern, your teller, that I was going to say, Edith, we could make a movie of this. You could easily draw it in cartoon form and I would narrate it. You know, we should make a movie of how pure vision works and how impure vision works. But it's two people watching the same difficult scene, and one sees it impurely as samsara, and the other has awakened to this same exquisite seen. In Dzogchen, Anamtupten explains there is the Dharmakaya, the Buddha nature, appeasing a god. Okay, that's good. Thanks, Gail. That's fine. Appeasing a god, propitiation. Okay. In Dzogchen, Anamtupten explains there is the Dharmakaya Buddha nature, which is sometimes called self-arisen awareness. Nothing, but nothing, no thing can condition it, affect it in any way. Nothing can affect it in any way. Not our negative emotions, not our suffering, not being kidnapped and taken as a hostage. Nothing can contaminate it or lessen it. Nothing makes it more or less virtuous. It's not dependent on whether you did virtuous deeds or not. Virtuous deeds just come naturally, but it's not dependent on that, okay? It's perfect no matter what. What is happening in our lives, whatever's happening, it's perfect always. No total compassion, lack of solidity, no duality. Your pain is my pain. That's where it comes from. And as human beings, we are so identified with the conditions of our being, our body, our moods, our circumstances, the dark sides of ourselves. Our ordinary mind does not capture that whole other dimension of ourselves. Our ordinary mind is dualistic. It separates itself from absolutely everything. And our relative self is based on building blocks of our body, size, shape, age, birth, death, and personal history. Parents, birthplace, we celebrate birthdays. We say, happy birthday, I hope you have a wonderful day. We celebrate that. That's how we see ourselves. This is my birthday. This is what we celebrate. But our true nature is unborn. It's never born and it never dies. Can only be discovered when our notion of the relative self is dissolved. Our view must determine emptiness and non-duality and so forth. So I wanted to give you that as an introduction. I wrote it very quickly yesterday, and my mind is not exactly doing things that well at the moment for another week or so, I'm sure. But anyway, that's what I wanted you to see. And whenever, I'm living between two Turkish neighbors, okay? They can hear into my apartment, I can hear into their townhouse. And they love entertaining, okay? So it's a shock to me because their music blasts. Their dogs, when I'm going, shh, don't bark, their dogs bark all the time. So I suddenly thought, here it is mantras, Melanie. Here it is mantras. Do not be distracted by the noises. And what I've looked at, when I looked at it purely, I thought, they have such a ball with their lives, These people on Saturday night, our first Saturday night here, we're having a garden party, a huge table in their little garden, 2x2, lots of people and lots of noise and lots of laughter, which got worse and worse as they were drinking more heavily and everything. And then their kids on that side who make quite a lot of noise. And I thought, the children are beautiful. So what if they scream? So what if they shout? It doesn't really matter. So these people are enjoying themselves, and those people are, they have a vive, what's the word? A joie de vivre, They have a lovely energy and they enjoy their lives and they have millions of people coming in. Okay, see it for what it is. See it as joy and don't be distracted by it. Can you all understand what I'm saying? That when you go through the slow path, you need to, if you go through the Hinayana path, you need to renunciate everything. I'm putting this air conditioning on. It's so hot. Okay. You need to renunciate and you need to be pure and you need to have no contact with the rest of the world. Then you go to Vajrayana, and now you're seeing the world as deities, as the 100 deities, as the mandalas and everything. And then when you get to Dzogchen, You can adopt all those things as long as you're not attached, and as long as you don't know, as long as you're not if you're not in any way attached to any of the things. So it's really, really important that you could see whether you take the slow path or the fast one, the fast train or the slow boat. It's fine if you need to withdraw from samsara to a certain extent to feel okay on your spiritual path. That's fine. But clearly my path isn't like that at all. I'm in the thick of samsara, the thick of samsara. I have to do millions of things that if I were on retreat, I wouldn't even think about or want to do. And that's the way it is. So I've got to cultivate that eye of wisdom. I've got to be able to see it differently. Each person, even people that aggravate you, even people that are not spiritual. Do you all understand what I'm trying to say about the Tantra, the sharp Vajra of awareness Tantra? The awareness is so important. And later you'll see when I give you some of the Namtuttan's notes, that awareness is really, really important. But he says it's not just ordinary awareness. It's not just like you become aware. He says it's like if you stub your toe or you knock this or something, you go, you are absolutely in agony. He said, real awareness is like that. It's like, oh, you get it. Awareness is, yeah, I'm aware of this, I'm aware of that. But awareness, when it's the sharp Vajra of awareness, Tantra, when it's the sharp Vajra of awareness, it hits you. Anyone want to ask or say anything? Please do if you want to. But do you all understand what I'm trying to say? Just nod your heads if you understand, because I really want you to really be able to do this and to know that the Dharmakaya Buddha nature, he says, is free from the 8 conceptual extremes. And what are those? I gave them to you before. Arising and ceasing, it's unborn. Non-existence and permanent. It's not permanent and it's not non-existence. There's something there. Coming and going, which is really important. Being multiple and being single. Whatever. It's free of all of those, and it's with the doors of liberation. And what we've got to understand is that when we come to the generation stage of Vajrayana, okay, sorry, I'm going on and I should have stopped. Maybe somebody does want to comment or ask something on what I gave you as a full background to the whole Tantra. Anybody?
I just wanted to mention to you an experience that I had as you were talking about this awareness, which suddenly, yesterday, I think it was, I was walking down the passage and this gigantic wasp came straight at me. And as we saw each other, I just went, ah. And this thing turned around and it flew away from me, but it left me because there was shock. It was so close, it could have gone for me immediately. But after that, I was so aware, I was in another space. It was amazing. So these things sometimes are gifts that come from just there.
Exactly. And that's what I want you all to understand, that these are the gifts that come and you get that shock. And yesterday I found an article. I don't know why I even opened it, but I started reading it on my phone. And it was about this wolf. I think it might have been in London. This wolf came into the hospital, walked into the hospital. Did you see that article? And I couldn't stop reading it. The wolf came in. The doors, there's wind that come. The door, everybody went hysterical because the wolf came into the hospital. They pushed him all the way. But this one nurse or this one girl in the hospital, she and the wolf just looked at each other and they had an awareness. And then the wolf was carrying a creature in its mouth. And the wolf was telling her to follow him. She could feel that with her awareness. So she followed the wolf, even though the police were coming and everything. She just said her instinct made her. First, the wolf roared at her, and then he relaxed when he saw that she had meant no harm for him. And then he took her all the way into the forest. She phoned a vet friend of hers to come and help her. And all these little beings who were a cross between wild dog and wolf had fallen down a well. And this guy went down the well with a rope, and they rescued all of these while the wolf watched. I mean, how the wolf got to the hospital, I don't know. I was intrigued with it. I really believe that is possible. I couldn't stop reading that amazing story of this girl who trusted her awareness that the wolf wouldn't do anything. He needed her, and the wolf knew he couldn't go down the well to get the baby. She couldn't go down the well to get the baby, so she came to get a human to do it. Unbelievable. So anyone else? Sorry, that's a beautiful thing about your wasp, Sharon, because that's really important, you know. Anyone else have anything? As long as you get it.
Can I just mention one thing there that cropped up whilst you were talking? If you want to change the way you see things, if you change your sight, you see something else.
Exactly.
So a lot's got to do with your attitude towards things. In other words, you mentioned yesterday or the other day, whenever it was, when somebody walks into a room and you've never seen them before, in that moment, you're in that moment where there is nothing. And that is, you can't explain it and you can't do anything with it. You have no idea, and that is where the wisdom lies. And then all of a sudden the ego steps in and says, oh, look, she looks a very nice lady. Or, oh, she's obviously very annoyed this morning. I don't know what the hell's wrong. You know, that gets in the way. And that is what happens. Now, how do you overcome that? It's three things. If we can stop using the words I, me, and mine in our everyday speech, there's nothing else. You don't have to train in anything. But so somebody says, do you agree with this meeting? Or do you agree with what's just been said? And invariably you say, no, look, I think this and this should happen. Or I think, then your ego is taken over. There is no way you're going to get anywhere. But if you can just have a conversation, and you try this for one day, for starters, actually try it for 1 hour. Somebody says, how are you feeling? You say, I'm feeling fine. No. How are you feeling? Very good this morning. Or not so good this morning, it doesn't matter. But there's no I and there's no me and there's nothing that can interfere with whatever happens. So you're there instantaneously.
You see, you're so right what you say, but it is so difficult to do it. Why? Because we're so busy protecting ourselves, protecting who we are. And so if somebody comes in with an attack of some sort, even your perception of an attack, we have to protect ourselves, you know. And that's what's so sad, because when we realize there isn't really an I to protect, then we can give it all up. And that's what he's trying to say here, which is really very, very beautiful.
But are you giving it up? In other words, if somebody says to you, says to me, Ron, you're looking terrible this morning, or whatever, or you're speaking nonsense, you know, this morning, invariably what happens is you jump up and say, what do you mean? You know, I don't think so. But now somebody says that, they say, well, you know, could be. So in other words, you haven't picked it up.
I know exactly what you said. And that's really important, because we have to change everything in our lives. And that's so difficult because of the way of our upbringing, our conditioning, everything. That's who we identify with. Sure. And it's so wrong, because, you know, here I am, I felt exhausted and I felt I'm not in touch with any, but I'm sitting with all of you. And there's another part of me come to life again, you know, even if I crash after the session. I mean, there's a part of me that really kind of understands what I'm trying to say, which is really important.
So if I could just mention one other thing, if I may. Somebody once said that if you throw a stick at a dog, the dog will chase after the stick. If you throw the stick at a lion,
they look.
The lion will go after you. So this person came with this deduction of that we are so busy chasing dogs. Our meditation is chasing dogs. Why? Why do we say that? Because these are the thoughts that we're chasing. We keep chasing one thought after another, and it doesn't matter what it is, but we're locking ourselves into it, and nobody else is putting us in that state, but we lock ourselves in. And the way out of that, it may not be easy, but it works, is not to use I or me or whatever that other word is.
Mine.
Then you're free. I, me, and mine. You leave them out of your conversation, and you are not touched by it because it sits with the person delivering, and let them sort it out.
You're so right, but it doesn't work in practice as easily because we're so attached to the I. But
Yeah.
you know, I think as we go along and you learn and you grow and you meditate and you take time for your spiritual practice, you just begin to realize how you are just that wind in the ocean, you know, whatever. You're not a thing, but it's hard. It's really hard. But what you're saying is 100% true. But when you come to Vajrayana, to the generation, the creation stage of Vajrayana, okay, this makes us change our impure dualistic vision to pure vision. It's called in Sanskrit, upatikrama, the pure vision. But it's still contrived because in the Vajrayana practice, we are seeing ourselves as the deity. So I'm seeing myself as Tara, but I must say that my prayers to Tara have changed a lot over the years because I always go, Tara in me, what should I do? You know, not Tara over there, Tara in me, because clearly the day I came into Buddhism, you know, Tara was just there. I remember Tanya was giving us a talk on how to do Tara, and I just knew this is what I've got to do. Why? Because she's action accomplishing. She's fast, she's swift, she does things like that, and that appealed to me. So you see yourself as the deity, you go beyond to get a more sacred outlook and not just see yourself as the I that we're talking about, okay? And upatikrama, which is the generation or the creation stage, is built upon a rich system of sacred principles, such as the 5 families, the 3 to 5 kayas, the 5 wisdoms, the 5 Buddha fields, the 5 father Buddhas, the 5 mother Buddhas, the mandalas, the different aspects of Buddha nature or great emptiness that can be actualized in our experience. Now, these are so important. And you've heard me emphasize this over and over and over again when we've done the wisdoms, the families, the mandalas. I've done it 100 times with you. But what I want you to understand, that all of these things are just different aspects of our enlightened mind. They're different aspects. So the 5 wisdoms, okay, we recognize in the 5 wisdoms are the different attributes of our awakened, enlightened mind. The 5 Buddha fields. What's a Buddha field? A Buddha field is not a mundane physical realm. In Tantra, they are the mandalas of the enlightened realms of the Buddhas, but they are not over there. If you want to go to Devachan, it's not over there, it's in there. So when I'm asking to go to the copper-colored mountain and I'm going to meet Karen there who's going to Devachan, okay, we're going to meet each other there, then we know that it's a state of mind. So when I've got a state of mind and you've got the same state of mind, our minds will just join. And suddenly there'll be wisdoms, and there'll be beauty, and there'll be a mandala. So each of the 5 families has got a different Buddha field. So Vairashana's got Akinishta, it's called. Akshobhya's got Abhirati. Ratnasambhava's got Srimati. Amitabha's got Sukhavati or Devachan. And Mogasiddhi's got Karma Prasiddhi. Okay, everything is sacred. In the Gyagarbha Tantra, they capture the principle of the way the enlightened mind sees, and I took this quote: without a self-arisen awareness, knowing the true reality, even the realms of the Sugatas, of the Buddhas, appear as lower realms. At the moment the meaning of Dharmata or equality is realized, even the lower realms are joyous akinishta. So in other words, when you see the realms out of your wisdom eye, they are what they are. But if you see them out of your ordinary eye, that beautiful space within you could be just an ordinary samsaric realm, because we can't see it, okay? Not physical worlds, but that state of consciousness is in each of us if we abide there. And the 5 Father Buddhas in Vajrayana also represent the qualities of the enlightened mind, and you can use them in your meditation. The 5 Buddhas, what the 5 Father Buddhas are is your 5 skandhas. What are your 5 skandhas? Your form, your feelings, your perceptions, your habits, and your ordinary consciousness. Now, each of those 5 Father Buddhas, are they really Father Buddhas? Forget it, okay? They're just the enlightened part of your form, the enlightened part of your feelings. Each family has that. The Ratna family is the one that transmutes all the feelings. So you realize that the 5 skandhas correspond, the 5 form, feelings, perception, correspond to the sacredness of each of those skandhas. And the true deity of the nature of reality lies inside us, okay? And how do we meditate on these deities? Anam Tupten says, we first of all, we realize their significance behind the form. The form is nothing. It's just a form of a Buddha. That's all it is, okay? But we realize behind the form, we visualize the deity in rainbow form. Now think about this. Your body, if you attain the rainbow body, which is your ultimate thing to attain, all you've done is you've taken the body and you've just allowed it to be its natural rainbow form. So he says, meditate on the deities in rainbow form, no solidity. So whatever you're looking at has got no solidity. It's really rainbow form. Secondly, he says, visualize each of the aspects of these deities, like Chenrezi's got 4 arms. They represent the 4 immeasurables. Everything represents something. The 4 immeasurables are compassion, loving kindness, equanimity, sympathetic joy. So we look at all the details on these deities. I am not a visualizer, okay? I've never been able to, in my practice, to visualize the details of the deity. But if you are that kind of person, see that every detail represents another beautiful awakened aspect within us. I can't. I always visualize the whole deity in what they represent. I can't. My mind does not go to the details. But if you are a detailed person, like you, Iga, if you ever did that with your photography mind, you would look at every single detail on them, and each detail represents something. When you look at the copper-colored mountain, all the ornaments are part of you. They all represent you, okay? So he says the details have significance. And remember, he says, our true nature is the deity, and it's called VAJRA pride. Now, when I think I look nice and I walk around with ego pride, it's a useless thing, as Ron's just given us the example. But VAJRA pride is, I'm so proud to be Chenrezi. I'm full of compassion. It's a different pride. It's sort of, I can give out compassion. Or when I'm Guru Rinpoche, it's always Guru Rinpoche inside you. Then I know that all these dark forces, I can subjugate them. You just look at the general thing of what it is with that pride. And we need to train the mind and see how they give birth to the various qualities. Now, when you go to the five mother Buddhas, okay, they represent the 5 elements. Now, when you look at yourself, your body is made up of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. That's what your body is made up of. But your physical body is the coarse nature of the elements. Now, as soon as these elements are released, you can see them in the sky. Each one has the most beautiful, vivid color. That's what the rainbow is. The 5 mother Buddhas are really the 5 elements when they've been released out of coarseness into their beautiful, beautiful state. Okay, and so it's the sacred that pervades. Then the 3 jewels, you can go. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. You can take those 3. Or you can go, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Yidam, I take refuge in the deity. Or it's all ultimately in us. Or you can take refuge in the beautiful Dharmakaya, in the beautiful Sambhogakaya, in the beautiful Nirmanakaya, your 3 bodies. That's the refuge I do every day. And that incorporates all the other sources of refuge. Why? Because you know that those 3 bodies are in you and you're taking refuge in them and you are safe. So even if you have to die, if someone comes and points a gun or a wasp comes and stings you, like we've just had the example, you're okay. You're okay. That's what I kept thinking of myself when I came here, and I was so tired and we had so many things to do and trying to find your space and your place and everything. But then I remembered Lama Yeshe saying, oh, fatigue is just a state of mind, Melanie. That's all. So I thought, well, get your state of mind out of it. Get it out of the fatigue state. And I saw all these boxes in this room of all my things, and I thought, right, it's 10 o'clock at night, but I'm going to do this before the morning, and I'm going to be practicing. And so I did, because fatigue is your state of mind. And here, what we're doing is we're taking beautiful refuge. And when we look at the physical body, what he talks about in this whole verse, and I'm trying to go through it quite quickly, but he talks about the nadis, the bindus, and the sorry, let me give you them properly. He talks about your subtle body, which has the nadi, or the channels, 3 main ones and lots of other ones. Or it's called tsa in Tibetan, the prana, or the lung in Tibetan, or the energy, and the tigla, or the bindus, or the essences. They are these little rainbow. When you see, you can't see it from there, but when you see the eye surrounded by a rainbow, that's called a tigla or a bindu. Now, when I look in the sky, when I'm doing my practice, then I see all these thousands of bindus, these beautiful rainbow-colored little round, perfect circles. And then these bindus, when they start developing, become the mandalas of the deities in a most beautiful way. So what we do is, we try and develop that subtle body in the Anu Yoga, which is just before the Dzogchen, before the Ati Yoga. You are developing the nadi, the energy, and everything else. And there are various exercises that you can do in order to really clean all the knots and let all the energy go into the central channel. And then there's no duality left. So there are physical processes which help you to really understand this, okay? But in the end, we're trying to transcend attachment to the forms and cut through all the different, cut through everything to be able to have that clarity, that purity, that emptiness, all of those things. So it's really, really important. And in the Anu Yoga, they give beautiful, beautiful, they give beautiful practices. Like there's a sound called, I can't remember what the name is, I'll tell you what it's called. Let me tell you what the sound, I don't do the practice, but I just want to give you that sound. No, it's not there. Just let me see. Sorry, everybody. It's called a hung, H-A-N-G. And the hung is like a red tick. So it's half and then full. And that goes into the back. That goes at the upper end of the central channel. And then at the base, you know, that it's called an R shed, and it's got a narrow triangle at one end. And you imagine fire blazing forth, and then it flows down and it touches at the navel chakra, and then you get into bliss and emptiness. I'm not telling you how to do it. I don't do that practice, and you two may do it, I'm not sure, but I don't do that at all. But there are beautiful, beautiful practices that you could do to get there. And what we're doing is, by the time you come to the Dzogchen, then all the rivers return to the great ocean. So what you realize by the slow path is that each of the practices take you a step further, but none of them are complete in themselves, right up until you get to the top of all the yanas. In the Nyingma tradition, they give you the yanas. And what happens is, when you get to the highest thing called Dzogpa Chempo, which is called the great completion or the great perfection, whichever you prefer the word, Dzogpa means completion, which states that everything that exists in the realm of possibility, including samsara and nirvana, the path, the goal, everything, are completely contained already in your Dharmakaya awareness. It's already all there. You don't have to go on the road to do it. And Dajjim Lingpa, in his revelatory writing, says that Chempo means great, no higher Dharma than the absolute yana right at the top, the Dzogchen or the Ati Yoga. Maybe Corin wants to comment. But he said, Dajjim Lingpa, that Dzogpa, the true meanings of all the nine yana, is complete, and great is the ground of all the vehicles. So it's like what they teach in this tantra is that each of the pathways are good, but it's like if you took a glass of water from the ocean and you said, this is the ocean, and I go, no, 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 no. That is the water from the ocean, but it's not the total ocean. Go and look there, you'll see the total ocean. So each path sees a little bit. When he gives all the pathways, he tells you what each one sees, but in the end, they all return to one state, which is the great completion or the great perfection. Now, let me say to you, you can't even find, you'll never find a master who will give you the Dzogchen practices unless you have this awareness, unless you have something that really resonates and understands. Otherwise, if you don't, if what I'm talking about doesn't mean a lot to you, then it means fine, go on the journey you need to go on and get there. And then one day you think, what am I doing all this for? Because all the practices fall away. As the Buddha taught, he said, what I'm teaching you is like a boat to cross the ocean. Once you cross the ocean, you don't need the boat anymore. So he gives all those different systems. Like right at the beginning, you get the Shravakas. They're called the listeners. They meditate on no self, sole desire is to find freedom for themselves, and they renunciate everything. They go in a cave in the mountain and they stay there for years and years and years. The Pratchika Buddhas, what they do is they take the wheel of life with all the physical things that lead us into the next lifetime, and they go in reverse, and they go back to see where they have gone wrong. That's what they do all the time, which is very good way, but it doesn't give you the complete picture. It gives you the picture of this particular life, and so on and so forth. The Madhyamika system, it's called a mind-only system. So they use the mind. Everything is a product of the mind. That's true, but they focus on the emptiness, which is good, but they don't get the total picture. None of them do. The Kriya Tantra really concentrates on physical cleanliness, and the deity and the practitioner are like master and disciple. But we're going beyond that because we know it's in us. The Upaya Tantra is a mixture of the higher Tantra and the lower Tantra. They have a lot of conduct and observance. The Yoga Tantra, they have, I'm not even going to go into all of these. The Maha Yoga is based on the creation stage that I've just told you about. The Anu Yoga is the completion stage where you come to bliss and emptiness through the central channel. And then finally, you get to the completion stage. And that's the fast train. It does not, from the time you get there, you are already complete. You are already the Buddha. You actually are past all the processes. You can use the processes still to wake up, but you actually have made a leap over into who you really are. Now, it's really difficult if you are one of these people that is anal about everything being exactly like you want to do it. But once you've realized the wisdom of Dzogchen, you realize the meaning of all the systems without having to go through each of them separately. If you only realize the meaning of these systems, you haven't realized the wisdom of Dzogchen. I'm just giving you a brief overview of that one verse. Then those of you who've got it, go and read verse 4 and see if you can see what I'm saying. But what I'm really giving you is a Namtupten's analysis where he says, we're trying to develop the subtle body. We're trying to become the deity in action. We're trying to leap over all the practices to see who we really are. And so in the Dzogchen, we start with that. We don't end with that. There's no goal. The goal and the path are together. You are just understanding who you are. And all of us, like what you were talking about, Sharon, about suddenly when the wasp came for you and you realize what a sting you could have, but he looks at you and you look at him and there's amazing awareness in the moment. You might have that. You might be visiting somewhere beautiful and say, oh, like Jade, your message to me to say, I love all this. I love it. I'm relating to all of it. Look at all your beautiful wind and trees behind you. I mean, I love all this. She's in Mauritius, but I love all this. And I feel it. You have to feel it in your bones. You have to really move and feel it in your bones, okay? Because you really don't have to go on that path. But most of us do have to go on the path. But the one is the causal yana. That means you take the steps in order to gain enlightenment. So you take step by step by step. It's okay if you want to do that with the greatest of pleasure. Okay, it's called the causal yana, the slow path. You're going to a cause. But the resultant yana is a fast path. And it means it's a shortcut. And it invites the individual to experience the result. You can be the deity one day. You can suddenly awaken that you are the deity, and the goal and the path are one when you go on the fast path. the resultant yana. So it's really, really very, very beautiful. He even gives the example of the peacock and the VAJRA. Those are the two things that they play with. And the peacock, there's a myth that the more poison the peacock consumes, the more beautiful he becomes. So what that means is even the dark side of life is embraced. The dark feelings are embraced. And when the world is in a total state of confusion, is the time when people can practice, okay? Because it's a time when the darker the night gets, the brighter the lamp becomes. It's amazing, actually. The darker the night gets. So if you look at our world, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in America that's supposed to lead the free world, but boy, am I praying that they could remain free, okay, and not have dictators. Let's not even mention anything, but I'm praying for that. But when the world is dark, and if you listen to Guru Rinpoche's prophecies, this is by no manner of means the darkest it's going to be. It's going to be very, very dark. But if you look at it, if you've got that connection with Guru Rinpoche, who embodies all the compassion and wisdom of the Buddhas, you will be taken care of. You will be asked to serve lots of people, to touch the lives of people. You will definitely. So when you take your refuge in the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya, you're actually saying, here I am to give service. I'm so happy to give service, because in this dark age that is really coming worse and worse, this is not the worst. This morning, I opened the phone and it said, watch it, Gauteng, you're going to be without any water. Okay, the water is just depleted. Okay, in this house, I think we've got all our own water system, but you know, the water is going to be depleted in Gauteng. That's the most terrible thing. But the darker it gets, the darker, the brighter the lamp becomes. And the more liberated you are, the more you can give service. That's the only thing that really counts in the end. So when people text me at 11 o'clock at night and they're in dire straits, you know, my husband might say, what are you doing? But I have to, because I need to be that bright lamp inside me in this dark time. And so do each and every one of you. It can't be about ourselves. It's got to be about really taking light and putting it into the world. There's nothing else for us to do. Let's do a meditation, and then we'll have a few minutes to talk. I've given you it very, very, very quickly, but in the realm of absolute truth, there are no yanas, no stages of awakening, no practices and discipline, no conceptual categories. It's only taught for the benefit of leading sentient beings to enlightenment, like a boat to cross the river, but not a destination. Now, I want you to sit in your meditative postures and think about, before you start, how you are always, always pondering your destination. You may not physically be going anywhere, but you're always thinking, oh, I'm getting old, I better get my will in order. Or I wonder what's going to happen with my poor child who's going through a terrible time. We've always got another destination, all the time. And that's true. But just understand, at the moment of death, there is no destination. You are the destination. Everything that is inside you, from your physical body to the channels, the nadis, the prana, the energy, the bindus, all of that has a beautiful awakened side, an enlightened side. And the minute we drop our physical bodies, there we are in enlightenment as the deity, as the Buddha, as the awakened being, ready for service straight away. We shouldn't even be going through any bardos. We should just awaken right then and there. And lots of you can do this when you die. Straight away to Guru Rinpoche, Amitabha, wherever you feel of the 5 families. And service straight away. Learning and service. Awakening. Absolutely awakening. So I want you now to actually just for a few minutes rest in your true state. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Let everything take care of itself completely and utterly. Nothing left to do. Just allow your whole life, your little life of you, your children, your family, your problems, your everything. Just let the whole life go. There's a wind because we're quite high up. There's a wind, and let it all blow into the wind. Everything that you're worried about, just let it come up and blow into the awakened state of your true nature. The sky is your real blue sky, blue, vivid blue is your real nature. Let absolutely everything arise, whatever you're going through, fatigue, worries, problems, children, relationships, just let it come up and simply rest as though you were right in the right place at the right time. Nothing to do, just to be present in this very, very moment. And if you find that there is an abundance of many negative things that comes up, take a beautiful deep breath and let out absolutely everything. Just let it go. Let it be. If you look at Jade's beautiful picture of Mauritius with the trees blowing in the wind, let all your worries blow like that in the wind. Just be in this very moment. In your beautiful mandala, all beings are the 100 deities and their retinues. All sounds are the sounds of mantra to realize your true speech, your true energy. All energy is limitless, beautiful, exquisite, blue, full of abundance. attachment to peace can happen not only to those at the beginning level of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, but on the other spiritual paths, many are attached to the bliss of peace and the important spiritual aspects of compassion and altruism engagement with the world are lacking. And he calls it the extreme of peace. We don't want to be in the extreme of peace. Nothing is missing in the true Dzogchen. All noble qualities and no extremes in the realm of absolute truth. No yanas, no pathways, no stages of awakening, no practices of discipline, no conceptual categories. It's only taught for the benefit of leading sentient beings to enlightenment, of leading them away from their suffering. See yourself doing that right now. Think of all the people at work around you that are really suffering from so many things, and see that you want to lead them in some way to enlightenment at the level they can agree, like the boat to cross the river, but no destination. Anybody want to say? Karen, maybe you want to say one or two things. There's a lot. I know there's a lot, but that's just one verse. So I thought I'm going to leave this for now, and then maybe a little bit later or next year I can pick up on another verse in this. This is a long verse and a lot, but I can pick up on another one and really teach it, because there's so much. I've got 43 pages of notes on this, okay? And I've given you about 10. So there's another 33 for me to teach you, but only if you love it. I won't if you don't love it. I love it. I think it's so beautiful. I try to summarize it and look at all the spiritual systems. But don't you find it quite fascinating that there are all these spiritual systems that the Buddha taught? You know, like Damika, your people in Sri Lanka. I mean, they love to do their Buddhism. I mean, your mother must have been a beautiful being, and she was totally devout. But this might have been foreign language to her, don't you think?
No, not really. I'm
Not
sorry. No, I can, yeah, I think she just told us today I can resonate very well. And, but doesn't matter how hard I practice the Buddhism.
But
It's
you were,
samsara, isn't it?
but
Sorry?
your people in your family, they were all practicing Buddhists, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
It's part of the life, so natural, so normal. But my point is, as long as we are in this samsara, all sorts of things, disappointments, every day, every single day. And sometimes it doesn't matter how much we practice, it's so hard to almost remove yourself from the attachment or grief. Yeah, I mean, I have so many stories and what I go through in life, but in the end of the day, the Buddhism, the practice helped me so much.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
amazing. But I mean, you're so privileged to be born into a Buddhist family. I mean, I have no idea why I wasn't. Okay, there you go. I mean, I had to go through the whole of all the Judaism and the Hebrew lessons and all the rituals and all the everything, which I suppose in a way has really set me into, I mean, I think all religions have all these rituals and all these things which could be very beautiful, you know, in many times, as long as you're not attached and obsessed with them, you know, as long as you can go beyond that. But the way you were brought up is very, very privileged and special in terms of enlightenment and everything, because to be brought up with a mother that, you know, that really went and went to the temple and, you know, looked and did that, you're very lucky. I had to learn all that from scratch, you know, in a way. So I think it's very, very beautiful. It really is, you know. And I think we each have to find our way, obviously, you know, but for me, it's not about Buddhism. When people say, oh, are you a Buddhist? I go, no, I don't know what a Buddhist is, but I know what an awakened being is. And I never heard that term in Judaism. Did you, any of you ever hear an awakened being in Judaism? No.
No, nothing.
No.
I feel exactly the way you feel, because in fact I went to a Jewish day school for 5-10 years of my life, whatever it was. You know that I know nothing about it. It's like nothing penetrated. Nothing went.
You just let it all go. It's so
Yeah.
funny. No, it's so funny because the girl who packed up my house is very religious and everything, and she helped me pack up my house. And then she said to me, "It was fast well, you know, on the Day of Atonement." And I said, "Thank you, you know, that's exactly, I mean, that's how it is. But we've got to do what's right for us and what feels okay for us, you know. That's the most important thing. And as long as you become a beautiful person, whatever you do, it doesn't really matter, does it?"
Mel,
Yes,
I
please.
just wanted to add, especially maybe for the recording, because somebody might listen to this without all the history and context that we all have, that although you're talking about the fast path, it doesn't imply that there's a lot of activity. It's almost the opposite. It's actually, you're on the faster path, or you're committed to the faster path, but it actually involves more stillness and letting go and space and being, because that may be confusing. And then the other thing is also, we talk about things being inside of us, deities and everything being inside of us, but even that could trick us into believing in that us, in that sense of an I. And it's more that there's no inside or outside. It's that there's just everything is one, in like a oneness. And so it's not that they're in you. You could say you in it. So yeah.
I think what you're saying is really important, because I think that the most important thing about Dzogchen is the inactivity, you know. But the inactivity doesn't mean you have to sit like this still for the rest of your life. That it doesn't mean at all, because you are really supposed to be totally involved in this world, but not of it, you know, which really makes a big difference. I think when you're involved you have to be involved in the world. For me to go and practice in a mountain cave now would be tantamount to stupidity, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I think that's the beautiful thing. It's called the inactive path. What does that mean? It means, you know, you don't have to go and develop the 5 wisdoms, because you know they're already in you. But as I said right in the beginning, if you need to go on that slow boat and do each and every one of the yanas over several lifetimes, that is absolutely perfect. It's just that we are in an age of degeneration. And that's maybe because I remember some of these lamas really talking a lot like Zongsar Khyentse Rinpoche. And he said, when he was a young man, when he was a young person, Dzogchen was never even allowed to be mentioned, because you had to have a teacher and you had to have that intense relationship. But then one day, and I know I read about this in Guru Rinpoche, one day, you know, it was realized that if these teachings could spread to people who could get it, that it was really important, because otherwise they would just die out. If it was just the whispered lineage from master to disciple, it would die out. And from then, it was opened out, and you could get it anywhere on YouTube and everything. But the but is that if you abuse it in any way or misuse it in any way, the relative consequences are really strong. So we've got to realize that even though it's very open, and you can pick up beautiful books like this one, you know, like this one of Anam Tupten, of the voice of the primordial Buddha. I mean, this with the awareness tantra, with the sharp VAJRA awareness tantra, is something you would never have got years before, never mind in an English translation. You wouldn't have even got this in Tibetan unless you were given the text by a master. But these books are now freely available for us, but we have to be careful, because if you don't get it, then it's better to rather go on the slow path and follow every one of the details, and also remember to not practice non-virtue, to be kind and compassionate, because even though that doesn't affect your Buddha nature, but you also don't want to have the relative karma of non-virtue in your relative life. So you have to do all of that in one, which is difficult. So let's end. So
Mel,
Can
quick
Yes.
question before you go. Why did you say that we don't need total pace? I didn't get it. Sorry.
Total? Sorry, what, we don't need
Did
total?
did you say that we don't need to be in total peacefulness? Or I didn't get it. Did you say something like that?
I definitely did. And you know what that meant? That was in the text, that it said, if you are attached to peace, okay, then what happens is most of what you're doing is aimed at this peaceful state, okay? But when you get right up to the goal of the path and goal of enlightenment, it really doesn't matter if you're at peace or you're not at peace. It is what it is. You're not attached to that state. And what he was talking about was that the people on the lower rungs of the teachings are very attached to that peaceful, quiet state. But once you go beyond it, it doesn't really matter anymore. That's what he was meaning. Okay.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Okay.
I'll say if anybody's got questions, because there's a lot here, you know, for people to really understand. But let's dedicate, and then I'll switch off the recording, and then we will, and then next week I won't see you, but Nicola's going to do something next week. And I really wish all of you well, but let's dedicate for the sake of all sentient beings, and let's really think about the way the world is. And just through this merit, let us just take the light that is inside us and pour it into all these troubled places right around the world. So through this merit, may all beings attain omniscience, may all obscurations fall away from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may all beings be freed. Sonam diye tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene chegana chi balak dropaye sipe sole doa dro warsho. So let's stop the recording.